Please do keep your camera off if you don't want to be recorded. Oh, the transcript. Let's get rid of that. Okay. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Emma Clark. I'm the Energy Waste and Sustainability Manager at Bradford District Care Trust, and I've been helping Frank at the West Yorkshire ICS to put on this series of events this year. So we've got some interesting speakers today, thinking a bit about sort of education and sort of upskilling our workforce and how we can get sustainability professionals within the NHS workforce, as well as more widely. And then a bit of a departure from that, but thinking about a specific area, which is palliative care, and we've got somebody talking about the sustainable palliative care project that's sort of been, or network that's been set up. So I think first we're going to have Vanessa from Teach the Future talk to us. So Vanessa, I will stop sharing my screen, and then you are very welcome to obviously start sharing. And if you want to just introduce yourself and introduce Teach the Future before you talk to us about what you've got to say, that'd be brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, so hello, my name is Vanessa. I am a year 12 student going into year 13, and I'm actually from Leeds, which is it's quite nice that you're hosting in West Yorkshire, because a lot of our volunteers are from across the UK. So yeah, but I am here with Teach the Future, and if I just share my screen, so I'm from Teach the Future, and we are a UK-wide youth-led campaign advocating for climate emergency education. So, like I said, we are UK-wide. So we originally started in England, and then we branched out to Wales, then Scotland, and then our new Northern Ireland branch, which is up and running at the moment. So, what does climate emergency education mean? So this means educating all levels of academia on the climate and ecological crisis, inclusive and equal teaching standards, awareness for students and teachers, and to include green skills in vocational courses. So what does this mean, basically? So when I sat down and wrote this, I was like, I need to make this as clear as possible, because what Teach the Future is all about having a climate inclusive education and having basically the right and the equal right for everyone to learn about the climate emergency and to learn about climate justice. And it's happening on a global level constantly, and we need to protect and empower our youth and empower our students, like Emma said, for the future and for the workforce, in all kind of areas of careers. But it's not just us who are supporting us. Like, we're not just supporting ourselves, we're supported by SOS UK and also independent organizations and trusts, and also by individuals who then they all donate, and we have funding and stuff like that. And that's just our website at the bottom, teachthefuture.uk. And I just wanted to bring your attention to this image, and along with the images on the right hand side of the PowerPoint on the last slide. So those are from banner drops or teach-ins. So this one was from 2021, outside of the Department for Education. And what really stood out to me when I saw this picture was the sign in the middle. And, Teach the Future was set up in 2019, during the pandemic, but it really kind of kicked off after that. And it really shows that, students and young people kind of persevere through all of this. And that's what I think is really important about Teach the Future, is that young people will persevere and will continue to fight for the right for climate education and climate justice. What else have we done? So we have done quite a lot of things, actually, but one of the most important things is the climate education bill, that is in I think it's in the second reading at the moment, or making its way through the second reading. So that is led by Nadia Whittom at the moment, and I think that's a really big step forward for us, and we are really advocating for this. But yeah, and we also have petitions which go along with the climate bill, the right to your rep form, which is on our website, the teacher network, which obviously is for teachers, and it's to help them share resources and kind of advocate in their own space, and to learn in their own space about climate education, and to kind of teach each other. And also press releases, so like the BBC, the Guardian, the West Yorkshire Post, and also become a volunteer. But we have all of these things on our website, which is really accessible, and it's really important that it's accessible, because for something like climate justice, it's not just about young people, and it's not just about people who are able, but anyone can be someone who fights for climate justice, and to fight for the right to have a climate education, because it may not necessarily affect you, but it affects the future, and it affects everyone on a national and global level. So it's a persistent campaign, and every voice counts. And like I said, it's not just for young people. And we are very active on social media and on our emails. So whatever we post, interact, get in touch with us. Like we're very kind of online. Well, we are young people, so yeah. So I took this graphic from the Teach the Future website, just about, again, going back to like teachers and kind of educating spaces. So have you been trained to teach climate change? And 70% of teachers feel like they have not. Which is a massive number. Like I went on the research page on the website, and I was like, wow, like that is an incredible amount, because education spaces are the foundations for young people to learn and grow. And I took this quote again from the website: "We need to equip students with the skills and knowledge for the green jobs of the future." And I think that is also quite a key quote as well, because um, we, you know, we're not just we can't just tell students to do external reading and, or just go on social media and, read these things, because, you don't know what you can trust, and you don't know, um, how much of it is reliable. But what we need is to make sure students and young people, whether that they be in primary school, secondary school, colleges, universities, like across the board, and like vocational courses as well, that they know what the future will be like, and they know what careers will be affected by this. So health, science, research, management, all that will be affected by global warming and climate change. And like I said, it's not the responsibility of geography or science lessons, but it's a social responsibility. That anyone that works with young people should have resources to empower young people when teaching about our climate. And that goes for anyone, like I said, so social workers, people who work in the NHS, teaching staff, trainers, anything, because it is a difficult conversation to have, and it is such a deep kind of topic, that we need the resources, and we need the funding to teach our future. So, sorry. So, what about the future? So, in terms of general Teach the Future stuff, So getting the climate bill back into Parliament, more actions across social media and in person, generate wider outreach, and continue political engagement across the UK through parliamentary receptions, which obviously is a lot of more formal stuff, which can be supported obviously again through social media or just emailing us. I think the email is hello@teachthefuture.uk, and that's been constantly monitored. So any queries, feel free to email. But on a more general level, we're kind of looking to collaborate with more media, sister groups and supporting trusts, encouraging climate activism across all ages, keeping young people's voices heard. And I think that is quite important as well, that it's not just for young people. Again, it's for all ages, and we have a lot of people who work with us that are obviously that they're not necessarily, young people in education, but the people who support us, like SOS UK and other charities and organisations like the RSPB or like the Quakers in Britain. I think they're one of the groups that support us. We have all sorts of people, and it's really important to keep this conversation going and to keep fighting for things like climate education and climate justice again, and to be aware of what's going around, not just in your local area, but nationally as well. And yeah, that's Teach the Future, just a short little thing about Teach the Future. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. That's interesting stuff. I think we all probably know teachers, or we'll have kids who are in secondary school going through it themselves, or let's say in our trust we might be working with have children's services. So I think it should resonate for a lot of us as to how we can maybe try and support Teach the Future. We're going to just hold any questions that people have got. We will just pause for now until the end of all of the presentations, if that's okay. But I would like to say I don't think I'd have been presenting to just a bunch of randoms on Teams didn't exist when I was your age, Vanessa, but yeah, well done for being year 12 and putting your hand up to say that you would do this. So we're going to move on to change agents. So we've got Charlotte and Susanna, who are going to do a bit of a double act for us, which should hopefully be quite a nice follow on from just what Vanessa's been talking about. But the same goes for you two, ladies. If you would just want to introduce yourselves and change agents as is appropriate as you go through your presentation, that'd be great. Thank you.
Hiya, so yes, we're both from Change Agents. We are the education team there. We're just going to talk a little bit about what Change Agents does, because we've got kind of multiple branches within our organisation. The kind of work we do in our charity and non-profit to meet the needs in the area. And we're also going to talk a little bit about current projects we're working on, because at the minute we're doing quite an exciting skills research and engagement project with De Montfort University and Leicester University, looking at the sustainability skills gap in the area. So just a little introduction to what we do. Part of our organisation is an education charity. So what we do is we provide education and training to graduates, students on placement, and more recently we offer training to different teams as well. We also have a recruitment arm to our business, so we operate a non-profit employment business, and we create and support work and career opportunities within the sustainability sector. And we've also got research and projects and like meeting facilitation that we undertake as well. So we end up with quite a lot of different interesting projects going on within the kind of sustainability realm. Because we're the education team, I'm going to pass you on to Susanna, who will talk to you a little bit more about what kind of education projects we're doing and what kind of needs we're trying to address with that.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for that, Charlotte. So I'm Susanna, I'm the other education lead at Change Agents. Just quickly, I'd like to say well done to Vanessa Azar for your presentation. I think that's really incredible that you've been able to do that and the work that you're doing. I mean, the similar issues that you touched on in your presentation is what Change Agents is trying to address. There's a huge gap between what we need to do in terms of as a nation as well as a global society in terms of sustainability and climate change. And one of the key areas we believe in closing that gap is through education. So I believe that you address a younger audience. Our main focus is between 16 and 24-year-olds, so really focusing on people in further education and higher education. If we had a huge team, we'd obviously look at every person at every point in education, but we're just focusing on further and higher education at the moment. I think this is a really pivotal age for young people. I think we've seen a lot in terms of the climate protests, the school protests a couple of years ago, and just more activism and involvement of young people recently. And I think that there's just a really important change happening with young people in particular. So that's really what we're trying to focus on, giving young people skills and knowledge about certain sustainability concepts and ideas so that they have a backing towards their passion. So some of the specific things we do is, as I've mentioned, we work with 16 to 24-year-olds. So we call that program Sustainable Futures. And we do training programs with them. So we do modules on, actually I'll go into that in a minute, what modules we do. We also do support for people entering careers, so people who want to go into sustainability careers. I have a lot of peers who are in sustainability careers right now, and it's quite an interesting area to be in right now because it's such an emerging field, but there's not a set standard on how to get into it. So one of the things we help do is prepare young people for transitioning into a sustainability role post education. And then lastly, as Charlotte mentioned, we do some work with people usually working within universities. So we do training for like marketing teams or HR, different departments within universities and how they can support students as well, and just also bring about sustainability into their roles. So some of the specific things we cover, we call the skills of a change agent, so specific sustainability skills. This covers knowledge and theory, so understanding things such as the circular economy, donor economics, systems thinking and things like that, just knowing the general theories and concepts people talk about when they're talking about sustainability. We also do personal effectiveness and work skills. So this is more towards the graduates who are going into sustainability careers. And then we also look at engagement, influence and impact, which again, I'll be going over in the next couple slides. But yeah, so generally our program covers this large area of what the skills of a change agent is, what someone who's going to change, whether it's their job or their local area or their national, regional, however big your dreams are, what skills of someone working in sustainability has. So to go into it a little bit more specifically, so personal effectiveness, we look at learning styles and core values. We found core values is a really important process to go through with students and young people, identifying what truly matters to them. Is it altruism, or is it confidence or going out there? So identifying their core values and what they care about. Next we look at workplace literacy and wellbeing. So that's just about adapting to the workplace, as well as project management. To do with engagement, influence and impact, this is about kind of the language of sustainability, how you influence actions. So this is about what communication skills are. There's a huge thing in sustainability about greenwashing and how to discuss sustainability in a way that you're not kind of over exaggerating claims, or just talking about it in a way that is genuine, authentic and truthful, but also impactful, and just how you influence change that way. So that's a really key area we like to cover, how to discuss it and how to influence people around you. Sorry about that. And then lastly, we look at the knowledge and theories, as I discussed before. So really just understanding the basis of what sustainability is, what the Sustainable Development Goals are, what the connections between them are. And yes, circular economy, zero waste theories, as well as systems thinking and how to think as a larger picture. So that's really what we cover in the education team. That's what myself and Charlotte do, and I'll pass on to Charlotte to discuss a little bit more about what our recruitment arm do.
Thank you, Susanna. Yes, so as I mentioned in the intro remarks, we also run a non-profit sustainability recruitment and employment business. The reason why we do this as well is because in this kind of line of work that we're in, we often find people tell us that it's really difficult to recruit into sustainability roles or resource sustainability projects within their kind of businesses. In particular, we find that large organisations have internal challenges in increasing their headcount, or they need to prove for the business case for a sustainability focused role or project. So many people are really keen to work in sustainability. Many students are studying sustainability related disciplines. So now more than ever, we've got lots of people interested in these roles. And we've also got organisations needing to fill these roles, but just sometimes there's just a bit of a disconnect in how we can link those up. So we set up a sustainability employment business. Often we kind of have students that have recently graduated that fill these roles that have been created, and these placements that are sometimes only started for a specific project often end up leading to a permanent new role within an organisation. We often help right from the beginning of a project, so we scope and define the job description and even kind of look into how to structure the team, because in particular with this research that we've been doing with De Montfort University and Leicester University, is when sustainability jobs are being advertised, it's very difficult to get across the kind of skills and knowledge required because sustainability is this almost new and emerging role. So kind of tailoring those job descriptions and looking for people in different backgrounds to bring the kind of knowledge and sustainability that we need for the role is really important to us. What then happens is any proceeds generated from our sustainability recruitment kind of side of it are gift aided to the charity, and that helps us with our education and outreach work, and it allows us to go to colleges and schools that would not normally be able to access such education due to funding. So it's kind of like a nice feedback loop that we've created here. In terms of like the specifics of recruitment and employment services that we offer, thank you, Susanna. The recruitment services we create engaging, appealing and inclusive job descriptions, really paying attention to make sure that the job descriptions are inclusive and appeal to like a really wide variety of people, because that's what we need in sustainability in any role, that diversity. We also advertise, shortlist, interview and manage the job offer and onboarding process. So from like the start to even like after the job's been offered, there's support offered all the way through. In terms of the employment service, we act as an employment business when organisations can't increase their internal headcount. So we employ the successful candidate for the duration of the project. We provide line management, payroll, support, and then they have like a local line manager within their organisation as well. And then again, these placements often become permanent roles because organisations can see the value of employing sustainability focused staff. When people are on placement and they've been recruited and employed kind of by us, like through change agents, we also offer the training and development. So as Susanna was talking about earlier, with that wheel with all the sessions, that's offered to all of the people that are recruited by change agents, and they also get one-to-one support and mentorship from whoever is like most relevant in terms of their kind of job role and where they want to be. So it becomes a very supportive process. In terms of like organisations we've worked with, I'm just going to kind of mainly talk about hospitals because this is like NHS focused here, but we've had students placed with UCLH, University Hospitals Bristol, North Bristol NHS Trust, Bristol Royal Infirmary, Royal Bournemouth and Christchurch NHS Foundation Trust as well. But it's not just organisations like that. We've also worked with local authorities, universities, public sector organisations and charities as well. And we find that this kind of supportive, inclusive recruitment, along with really valuable education and mentorship, is really providing businesses and organisations with very well-rounded and enthusiastic sustainability professionals. If you could just change over the slide. I just thought it was really important to include this quote at this point. So individuals are just as important as institutions when it comes to changing the world. Our decisions matter. It never has been down to politics or products. It always comes down to people. And that's something that we really believe at Change Agents UK. We believe that supporting people, mentoring people, providing them with education and support is really where we're going to get this change occurring. Just kind of starting that ball rolling and then allowing people to kind of go with that into their career. And eventually we want to get to a point where there is no sustainability roles. It's a part of every single person's job, because at the minute, yeah, sustainability is a growing sector, but it eventually will get to a point where sustainability and climate change and that kind of thing will be a part of every single person's role within an organisation. So I'm just going to finish with just the contact us page. We've got the website, we've got a number. We're based in Oakham. At the minute our offices are right by the train station. We've also got Instagram and LinkedIn where you can have a look at the different projects that we've been involved in, because we managed to like kind of dip our toe into quite a lot of different exciting things, which is always really, really fun. But yeah, thank you for having us on here today. I don't know if you want to add anything else, Susanna.
No, I think you covered it perfectly, Charlotte. Yes, thanks for listening to us.
Thank you. I've got lots of questions for you, just like Vanessa too, but in the interest of time, we'll move straight on to a slight change, I suppose, to thinking about sustainable palliative care. But let's say the idea of this session was thinking about, you know, sustainability for lots of different ages, and it starts, I suppose, with the teaching, but then if we're carrying it through into how we care for people, you know, it end of life, that's kind of, I suppose, where we're coming at from here. So we've got Kate, who's going to talk a little bit about the what's quite new, isn't it? I think the Sustainable Palliative Care Group, and I think we've got a few trusts who certainly, well, we certainly have got palliative care in my trust, so hopefully there's something I can learn to then pass on to colleagues. So again, if you just want to introduce, and then feel free to share your screen if you've got some slides or something.
I do have some slides. So hello, and thank you for the invitation. I'll bring my slides up. That's probably the easiest thing to do. Second. I always have a slight tech fail because I don't use Windows and it just like, yeah. It takes me a second to remember how to make it work. So 1 second, bear with me. Okay, can you see my slides okay?
Yes, we can.
Lovely, and I'm just going to try something. If I change slides, did you see that change?
No, it's still on the sustainability and palliative care slide.
Sorry, 1 second. I'm just going to try again. While I'm fiddling, I'll tell you that I think it segues in quite well because I feel like I am trying to be the change agent. So that's kind of exciting. We'll try this way. Entire screen. I think I know how to do this by now, right? Okay, so now if I change, does that work?
Yes.
Okay, lovely, great. So my name's Kate. So I'm a palliative care doctor from London. I live in West London and I work for Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Trust. And I am one of the founding members of our Palliative Care Sustainability Network, which is an initiative with the Centre for Sustainable Healthcare. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's happening with that, a bit about evidence such as it is, challenges and some positives. But what I'm not going to talk about, because I'm pretty sure you're all well versed in this, is the why of needing action in climate change. But I thought I would just talk a bit about why it's relevant on a kind of patient-facing basis for our field. So this is the sort of climate change and health slide from the WHO fact sheets, and I've just highlighted a couple of the relevant things. So in red there are the kind of direct impacts that climate change effects have on our patients. So our patients at the end of life are vulnerable, so they're vulnerable to extreme weather events and heat-related illnesses, and they are vulnerable to diseases like, you know, maybe COVID. So particularly kind of a direct, immediate impact there. And we also know that we tend to think of palliative care as cancer, but we look after patients with respiratory illnesses like COPD. And in this slide, it's called non-communicable diseases. So dementia might be one that you think of, where there's a link between climate change, air pollution particularly, and impacts on health. So for me, climate change and health and palliative care are related because all aspects of the healthcare system need to be working. As someone just said, it's not sustainable jobs, but sustainability being a part of everyone's job. But we also have a role because when we're directly facing our patients, there is a direct impact on them as some of the most vulnerable in our society. So I'll tell you a bit about what's happening in my trust. So Guy's and St Thomas's Central London Trust, this is their NHS Net Zero plan, which every trust in England now has. So they split it into 3 themes: carbon zero, connecting with nature, and cycle of resources. And I thought I would just tell you about one area which is relevant to the part of the palliative care team that I work in, and that's around transport emissions. So I work in the community, so we go out and see people in our own homes. And at the moment, the community part of our trust has a series of fleet cars. So I spoke to our sustainability lead within the trust, and I think we've got 70 fleet cars overall and 45 within the part of the trust that I'm attached to. And obviously the ambition there is to reach net zero emissions. So the obvious thing to do is first of all think about the vehicles that we do need and transitioning them to electric vehicles. They're currently fossil fuel powered vehicles predominantly, although one section of the trust is using hybrid vehicles. And I spoke with our sustainability lead about, I'm sure you're familiar with this, but some of the challenges of that. So the vehicles that we use within the palliative care community team, we're a central London NHS site. I'm based at Guy's, we're right by the river. We don't have a lot of land. Our cars are parked in a car park not owned by the trust, kind of off the way and around the corner. So trying to put electric vehicle infrastructure in there presents some challenges already because it's not our land. So who's going to pay and how are we going to get that organised? So one suggestion that will probably happen first is that we'll move from purely fossil fuel to hybrid cars, which is not ideal, but it's a start. So then the trust is thinking about other solutions, so electric powered cargo bikes and bicycles, which is a great idea, and there's an idea to get our community palliative care and district nursing teams using those. But then you get into practicalities of storage. So a cargo bike is a pretty big thing, and it's going to need somewhere to go, and you're going to want to have more than one. And then a challenge is battery charging. So at the moment, our trust doesn't allow battery charging for electric bikes and electric cargo bikes within the trust because of the perception around fire risk. So that needs to change. I'm sure you're familiar with this, but I find it fascinating just to start to think about these great ambitions and then what are the kind of practical logistical steps that need to be overcome to get there, and they are immense, but we're working on them. What I like about our trust's policy is that across the bottom you see there this idea of involving our people as active players in delivering strategic aims and their approach. And so where do the people come in when we think about transport emissions? Well, if we can't get to electric cars kind of tomorrow, then we need to be doing things differently. So in my team, I advocate, we're right in central London, our biggest distance to a visit is about 6 miles. We're well served by the tube, trains and buses. So there are different ways we can go out and see our patients. And our trust have engaged with this. So we have a Healthier South East London pledge approach. This is run by Do Nation. So the idea is that as individual members of the trust, you make your own sustainability pledge. So that might be Car Free Friday, it might be travelling to work differently, it might be around what you eat within your team meetings. So I think this is a great idea to bring people along. So that's the trust. What about the sustainability network? So as I said, this is set up with the Centre for Sustainable Healthcare, and we officially launched as a sustainability network in November of last year, so to time with COP26. What we've done so far is we put out a survey within palliative care to get an idea of what was already happening, what the challenges and barriers were, and what people would like help and support with. And the idea of a network like this, some of you might have come across the transition town networks. So the idea is to kind of inspire, empower, educate and share practice and share change. So what we've done so far is we've created this 5 steps model that I'll show you in a second as a way to get people thinking and talking about sustainability within our field. And one of the crucial aspects of this is, for me, step 2, so putting sustainability on the agenda, literally. So we suggested people start by getting together, find out what's happening within your trust or your organisation. In palliative care, we have hospices, so non-NHS organisations as well. Getting people talking about it. So every time you're having a team meeting, a staff meeting, putting sustainability as a standing item and getting people bringing those grassroots ideas about what needs to change and then knowing where to feed those up to make that happen. We suggested making a small but visible change. So this is where frustrating but exciting. So getting rid of plastic cups, adding some plants in the office. We know that's not achieving a huge change, but if it's the beginning of something and it's getting people working together, feeling excited and feeling that it is part of their role, then that's something to get excited about. Centre for Sustainable Healthcare have some excellent training on planning quality improvement projects to include a sustainable element. So we advocate that people do that, and then sharing and celebrating where you've got to within your team. So that's the graphic that we're sharing. And we're also planning our first event for this November to time with a year of our network, and I will give you the information about that at the end. So in terms of the evidence base for sustainability in palliative care, well, evidence in palliative care is a difficult thing anyway. It's difficult to work on evidence with patients who are approaching death. We're working on trying to get a sense of environmental impact assessments and carbon environmental footprint for the commonly used drugs that we use. So just to give you an example, there is a published paper looking at the life cycle emissions of injectable morphine. So that's interesting to look at. We have communicated with the authors of that paper around so tablet morphine, immediate release tablets versus liquid. So that's a drug that we prescribe very, very commonly. And we know intuitively that the liquid morphine is going to have a higher carbon emissions profile because it's liquid and it's in a heavy glass bottle, and the transportation costs are going to be higher. But we don't know that, so we're just trying to draw that down and start a conversation within our field. And that would be really interesting to then be making rational prescribing decisions for the patient in front of you, of course, based on their clinical need, but where their clinical need is, there is equity. Looking at the triple bottom line and looking at, okay, might I change my prescribing decisions if I have the evidence? We also do something called anticipatory prescribing. So when we know someone's approaching the end stage of their illness, we usually put injectable medication in the house. And there's a really interesting meeting coming up in September that we're going to contribute to, which is around how soon you do that and how you try to avoid those drugs being wasted and not used or expiring, versus, and this is a problem in my trust, doing it a bit too late and then having to courier out in a fossil fuel ploughed vehicle those drugs at the last minute. So those are some of the projects that we're starting to work on, and we're hoping at our event to hear about and inspire lots of other projects. And then I just put something here. This is something I came across recently. So there's a researcher down a little bit further in South London around Greenwich called Ryan Essex, who's working on resistance in healthcare, and that's a link to the article he's published on it. I just included this quote from his paper. So resistance is remarkably common in healthcare and has been an influential means of achieving change. So what do we mean by resistance? So resistance in healthcare covers sort of social determinants of health and action on poverty and action on inequality, but it also covers action on climate change. So when you see something that you think is not how it should be in your trust, in your working life, how do you stand up to that and how do you achieve change? And that can be everything from joining Doctors for Extinction Rebellion to being the change you want to see within your workplace and saying, no, I'm not going to drive to that visit, I'm going to take the bus. I think this is quite an exciting field and a way to inform our practice. So what are the barriers and challenges to action on sustainability and palliative care? Well, I describe myself as a committed amateur. I'm not a climate change professional. I've done a variety of things in a number of roles, so I've stood for election within the Green Party, so I'm definitely committed, but I do this in my own time, as do the rest of our members of the Sustainability Network. And it's really difficult because we don't have access to funding at the moment, and so some of the things we like to do, like for example the carbon footprint of a patient's journey through palliative care, we just don't have access to that. And we work within complicated systems, as you all know, so making sure that we're working in a joined up way and we know what's happening is an important barrier, but I've also put, it's also a positive. Once we do know, we can make connections and we can work together and we can feed into that, and that could be really exciting. And I think this is where some of the positives lie. So as you probably know in your own fields, when you talk to people in your office, in your team, they are aware of the challenges of climate change and they want to change, but we need to create the environment where the sustainable choice is the easy choice. That's what we need to work towards. I think there's a real grassroots kind of bottom-up opportunity here to get talking within palliative care teams about, well, you're doing the job, what do you see as the things that we could do differently? Let's take that, let's take it to the right level and let's make change happen. And that is a real positive around teamwork and morale building. Definitely coming out of COVID, where the kind of healthcare workforce is feeling pretty flat, but we have an opportunity there. And I also see within my field, healthcare in general and palliative care, a lot of transferable skills. So we know what it means to raise a concern. We know what it means to say we're not happy about this and what processes we might take. We know what quality improvement projects look like and audit and driving change. And the previous speaker was talking about communication skills. So that's a big part of our focus, is showing our palliative care colleagues we know what communication skills we have and we can use that to start conversations around climate change. And then I'll just finish with this graphic. So this is something that I pulled off Twitter a couple of weeks back. So we are somewhere between the red and the yellow, and I've just bleeped out the yellow area there. And my field is a very holistic field. So we talk about biopsychosocial, we talk about spiritual, psychological needs, and I think acknowledging the emotional impacts of trying to work on sustainability is really important. And sometimes when I feel like we're in the red oops zone there, I do feel those positives. I feel like it's a real opportunity, and we're going to work together, and it's going to be wonderful. But when I feel more like we're in the yellow zone, it can feel really challenging, difficult. It's just worth acknowledging and talking about that. So I will stop there, but this is just my last sort of contact slide. So the QR code will take you to our event in November, which is an interactive 3-hour seminar, which is free, talking about palliative care and sustainability. That's my email address. And network you'll find on the Sustainable Healthcare page if you go to the networks area, and that's our Twitter handle at the bottom at Parkcare/Net. So I feel like I've talked a lot. I will stop there.
Thank you. That's really interesting. I think I will definitely be passing on details for the event in November to my palliative care colleagues, and hopefully getting somebody to come along. So we've got about 50 minutes left to ask questions to any of our panel. I'll just have a wider discussion if appropriate. So whilst people kind of think and maybe put their hands up with a question, I have got questions for all of you. I always do. If I could start with Vanessa, I just wondered if you had a little bit of information about the climate education bill that you mentioned, if you know too much about it, because I must admit, even as a sustainability professional, that one had passed me by. So if you've got any thoughts or things to say on that, that would be quite interesting. Thanks.
Yeah, so I don't really know too much about the Welsh, Scottish, or the Northern Irish bill, but I know about the English bill, the one that's going through Parliament at the moment. So that's all about so it has quite a few things. I think it has stuff about having all new and pre-existing educational buildings becoming net zero, which from what I understand is something that the NHS want to focus on as well, being net zero and stuff like that. There's stuff about funding and resources, that it should be compulsory for exam boards to have climate education in all subjects, or have modules on it. and kind of treating eco-anxiety as well. So from what I understand, the people who are dealing with a lot of the climate emergency head on and who are exposed to stuff like this, they are more likely to suffer from anxiety or like mental health issues. And yeah, and I think that for as young people, that anxiety can get pretty intense. But yeah, it's all about just having those resources and being kind of palatable for everyone, really.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's really interesting that they're actually tackling eco-anxiety head on within that, because we are finding it in as a mental health trust. You know, our waiting list for child and adolescent mental health is through the roof, and eco-anxiety is a topic that does come up. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see about that. A question for perhaps Susanna or Charlotte is about the skills of the change agent, and that wheel looks brilliant. And I just wondered how easy it is to access. So if we are sort of in an NHS trust and we wanted to roll something like that out to either new starters, or I don't know, if we apprenticeships, apprentices, or whoever, how can we access it?
Yeah, so there's actually, weirdly, we've only just reframed our delivery as the skills of a change agent based on our previous delivery. So it's still, that was the first look. You're all the first people to see that actually outside of change agents. But it will be going on all our promotional material when we've finished just tidying everything together in the next few weeks. So I think if you are just generally aware of us, follow our updates on LinkedIn or on the page, you'll be able to see it on our program listing.
Cool. That's yeah, I will definitely follow up on that. And then I suppose perhaps going to Charlotte, thinking about the recruitment, because I know I've mentioned this to you before, and perhaps others in other trusts have found similar, is that we do generally just recruit through NHS jobs. And I did mention it to my boss, because we are hoping to get a new post in our team, and I suggested we might want to look elsewhere for recruitment. So I suppose it is just a bit about you know, the kind of cost of the service, how easy it is to access, and if, you know, perhaps just another few words about that, please.
So I don't have a cost list with me today, but in terms of like ease of access, it would just be a case of arranging a call with the recruitment team to run through like your needs, what you're looking for, if you've got any existing job adverts and things like that that you want to use, because it does often fluctuate depending on the scope of the project and what's already available to be used. But it is like a fairly straightforward process in terms of inquiring for information. It would just be a call to the recruitment team, and then it would get the ball rolling, just outlining what you need. And then any person that is recruited through this would then have access to all that educational material that Susanna was talking about, as well as like part of what you sign up for, really.
And so it could be recruitment for sort of full-time positions, and as opposed to just the kind of project related work, isn't it?
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be centered around a project. It's just the majority of the recruitment we do often is, because that's when organisations have difficulty increasing their headcount or proving the business need for it, so they recruit through us. But we have also recruited full-time roles for employers as well. And then often what happens then is it gets like passed over after their first year, and the organisation will then take over what's it called, either payroll and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And then so this isn't just a Q&A for me, so please do put your hand up if anybody else has got a question. But one for Kate, and just thinking about the what you said about the morphine and I suppose travel and transport, is that we find that I think we instinctively think that the travel of our community teams, which includes palliative care, but it could be our out of hours, our district nurses, our school immunisation team, or whoever, that it's going to be the travel that's the sort of highest carbon footprint of that service. But obviously the medicine that people are carrying around is potentially quite a big or even bigger part of it, but obviously we don't really have a lot of information. So you mentioned the oromorph versus morphine, and I just wondered if, I think you said it was sort of in its infancy, but whether there's projects that we can perhaps collaborate on, or kind of some of the next steps to help the Sustainable Palliative Care Network to perhaps look at some of this.
Yes, so I was on a webinar this week, or rewatching a webinar this week, which was about sustainability in prescribing, and the statistic from that was 25% of NHS emissions are from medications. Yeah, which you obviously know. Yeah, I think that the challenge is getting the data. So it's having the kind of the time and the money. Or at the moment, I'm trying to persuade a rep because there's a new immediate release morphine tablet which is orodispersible. So because it's new on the market, I'm hoping to persuade that rep to give me the information and then use that as leverage to get it out of the other companies. But there's definitely scope for a kind of project there where you get to see the carbon emissions. And medicines wastage is one of the challenges, I think. So how can we kind of, particularly in community, work with general practices to make sure that we're being rational about what we're prescribing them. I guess one of the values of community working is you can literally open the patient's cupboard and see what they've got, and then say, okay, you've already got some laxatives, why don't we use these ones? It's about sharing that within the teams and getting people thinking about that. Sometimes the easy thing seems to be to just request another prescription.
Yeah.
It's shifting that mindset as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're overlooking the even easier thing, which is, like you say, to look in a cupboard and actually maybe see what is there. And so yeah, actually it might be that there are some quite easy wins when it comes to the medicines that we could do before we even get to the carbon footprinting of specifics, and is one better than the other. I was just wondering, because of there's been quite a lot of work obviously being done with asthma inhalers.
Yes.
On one of our sessions a couple of weeks ago, one of our sort of GP colleagues, who's also a committed sustainability sort of person, is she did actually have some data for different types of inhalers and the carbon of that, and it was really interesting to see the variation within metered dose inhalers versus dry powder inhalers. It was really quite considerable. So again, for things where you know, if people are using quite a lot of morphine, then it's a case of, depending on where you get it from, it could be a higher or lower carbon footprint. So maybe we need to be trying to push down certain routes. But yeah, I'd certainly be interested in anything like that and trying to get our palliative care teams involved. Okay, we've got 5 more minutes if anybody wants to, let's say, jump in and have a last word, or let's say ask a question, or just an observation. Stony silence. Okay. In that case, I will take the opportunity to sort of wrap us up, and big thank you to all of you ladies who've presented today. I really appreciate your time and the topics that you've presented on us, or presented to us, I should say. The link that you've joined this session today is the same link that will work in 2 weeks' time. So if you do want to join us for our how our places will change, let's say, I think hearing from people at Natural England, Sustrans, or the West Yorkshire Flood Innovation Programme, you are more than welcome to join us and spread the word, or obviously you can find the details on Eventbrite. The recording will go up on the West Yorkshire ICS event page shortly, so if you have colleagues who you think would be really interested in what's been said, please do pass the details for that website on to them. And have a lovely afternoon and a lovely weekend. I hope the heat wave doesn't cause too much bother for you. Thank you very much, everyone. See you soon.
Thanks, Emma.
Thank you. Bye.